The Elder Wand. On paper, it's simple. It's the strongest wand ever made. If you own it properly, your spells hit harder, your control is sharper, and you can pull off magic that other witches and wizards literally can't. It's the kind of wand that makes you want to apologize in advance, and maybe send flowers afterward. But here's the problem. The Elder Wand has one rule that turns it into a death trap. It has loyalty, and it switches loyalty the moment its master is defeated. Not killed, defeated. Which means the wand's ownership can change from something as dramatic as a duel, or something as stupid as getting disarmed when you weren't expecting it. That single detail is why the Elder Wand leaves a trail of bodies behind it, because everyone thinks the only way to secure it is to take it from whoever had it last. And that's where the legend kicks in. In the tale of the three brothers, Antioch Peveril is the one who asks Death for a wand that will always win duels. Death basically goes, "Sure, King," makes the Elder Wand from an elder tree branch and hands it over. Antioch immediately does what every overconfident wizard would do. He starts bragging. He goes to a pub, tells everyone he has the unbeatable wand, then he falls asleep, and someone murders him in his sleep and steals it. So, even in the fairy tale, the Elder Wand's power comes with a built-in consequence. It makes you a target the second people believe you have it. Now zoom forward to the real history we actually know from canon. The Elder Wand becomes the mythic object passed through some of the most dangerous wizards in Europe. The name you hear the most is Gellert Grindelwald, who steals it and uses it to rise to power. And when he's at his peak, he faces the one wizard who can truly stop him, Albus Dumbledore. Dumbledore defeats Grindelwald in their legendary duel in 1945 and takes the Elder Wand. And this is the most important thing about Dumbledore as its master. He understands exactly what it is, and more importantly, what it can do to a person. Dumbledore knows that if people find out he has it, they'll come for him, so he keeps it quiet. He doesn't go around announcing, "Hey guys, guess what wand I'm using?" because he understands something most people don't. The Elder Wand is powerful, but it's also loud. Even when you're silent, it attracts chaos. And then we get to the part where everything gets messy. By the time we're in Deathly Hallows, Voldemort is hunting for it because he believes it's the key to finally killing Harry Potter. Since Harry's wand shares a core with Voldemort's, their magic keeps clashing in weird ways. Voldemort thinks, "Fine, I'll just get the strongest wand in history. Problem solved." Classic Voldemort logic. If something doesn't work, use more power. He tracks the Elder Wand to Dumbledore's tomb and steals it. And when he holds it, he's convinced he's done it. He's holding the legendary unbeatable wand. He should be unstoppable, but the Elder Wand doesn't care what you think you deserve. It cares who actually beat its master. And this is where the whole story becomes one big chain of reaction of wrong assumptions. Voldemort assumes that because Snape killed Dumbledore, Snape must be the wand's true master. So Voldemort murders Snape to win the wand's loyalty. Except Snape didn't defeat Dumbledore. Dumbledore set up his own death. Draco disarmed Dumbledore earlier that night. Draco is the one who actually defeated him, which means the Elder Wand's loyalty changed to Draco in that moment. And then Harry disarms Draco at Malfoy Manor. So, the Elder Wand's loyalty changes again to Harry. And the funniest part is, Harry doesn't even have the Elder Wand in his hand when this happens. That's the point. This wand is so obsessed with loyalty that it doesn't require you to touch it. It just tracks who wins. So when Voldemort finally faces Harry in the Great Hall, he thinks he has the ultimate advantage, Elder Wand plus Killing Curse. But the Elder Wand refuses to properly harm its true master, which means Voldemort basically aims the most lethal spell in existence, with a wand that's like, yeah, no, and the curse rebounds. So the Elder Wand doesn't just help Harry win, it exposes Voldemort's biggest weakness. He can't understand loyalty unless it's fear. He can't understand that power has rules, and he definitely can't accept that you can't bully an artifact into obedience. And then Harry, being Harry, does the most anti-Voldemort thing possible. He chooses to end the cycle. In the books, Harry returns the Elder Wand to Dumbledore's tomb, with the plan that if he dies naturally without being defeated, the wand's power dies with him. In the films, he snaps it, which is honestly the most satisfying nope in wizarding history. So yeah, the Elder Wand is the strongest wand ever. But it's also a perfect example of the Deathly Hallows theme. If you chase power like a hungry ghost, it destroys you. And if you hold power with humility, you're the first person in history who can actually survive it. The Resurrection Stone. Right, so if the Elder Wand is about power, the Resurrection Stone is about grief. And unlike the wand, this wand doesn't explode buildings or win duels. It messes with your heart. And in Dumbledore's case, his hand ended up looking like it lost a fight with a deep fryer. We'll get there. In the tale of the three brothers, this is the Hallow claimed by Cadmus Peveril. After Antioch gets himself murdered with the Elder Wand, Cadmus asks Death for something to recall others from death, which already sounds like a red flag. Death gives him a stone that can bring back the dead. Not fully, not properly, but enough. Cadmus uses it to bring back the woman he loved, who had died before they could be together. And at first, it works. She appears. But she's not really alive. She's described as pale, distant, separate from the living world. She doesn't belong there, and instead of comforting Cadmus, her presence makes him feel the gap between life and death even more. So, what does he do? He kills himself to be with her, which is the fairy tale's way of screaming, "This object doesn't defeat death, it makes you want to join it." Now, fast forward to actual canon history. The Resurrection Stone ends up hidden inside the Gaunt family ring, because the Gaunts are direct descendants of Cadmus Peveril. That ring later comes into the possession of Tom Riddle. Yes, that Tom Riddle, back when he still had a nose. When Voldemort finds out he's descended from the Peverils, he sees it as proof of destiny, of superiority. He turns the ring into a Horcrux without even realizing it contains one of the Deathly Hallows, which is wildly ironic. The most obsessed with immortality wizard in history is literally walking around with a stone that connects the living and the dead, and he doesn't even know. But here's where it gets devastating. Albus Dumbledore eventually finds the ring. He destroys the Horcrux inside it, but before he does, he recognizes the symbol engraved on it, the Deathly Hallows symbol. And Dumbledore, who is usually the calmest, most rational wizard alive, makes a mistake. He puts the ring on. Why? Because he sees the Resurrection Stone and he thinks of Ariana, his sister. He thinks of his mother, his father. For one reckless moment, the greatest wizard of the age stops being strategic and becomes human. He wants to see them again, to apologize, to explain. The ring is cursed. It nearly kills him instantly. And even though Snape manages to contain the curse, Dumbledore is left with a blackened dying hand and a countdown to his death. Eventually, Dumbledore hides the stone inside the first golden snitch Harry ever caught. He enchants it to open only at the close, when Harry accepts his own death. Which brings us to the most important use of the Resurrection Stone in the entire series, the Forbidden Forest. Harry walks into the forest knowing he has to let Voldemort kill him. He understands that a piece of Voldemort's soul lives inside him, and to end the war, he has to die. Before he goes, he turns the snitch over in his hand. It opens. Inside is the stone. Harry doesn't use it to bring people back, to fight. He uses it to see the people he lost, his parents, Sirius, Lupin. They appear, just like in the tale, real, but not solid. Present, but not alive. And here's the key difference between Harry and Cadmus. Harry doesn't try to stay with them. He doesn't try to follow them into death. He asks them one question: does it hurt? They tell him no. They tell him they're proud of him. They tell him they'll stay close. And that's it. The stone doesn't save him. It doesn't protect him. It doesn't fire spells. It gives him the courage to keep walking. So yeah, the Resurrection Stone is technically the Hallow that brings back the dead, but it never really brings them back. It just reminds you that love doesn't disappear when someone dies. And if you're not careful, it also reminds you how easy it would be to follow them. The Invisibility Cloak. Alright, so we've had the Elder Wand, power addiction in stick form, the Resurrection Stone, emotional trauma pebble, and now we get the only Deathly Hallow that doesn't immediately ruin someone's life, the Invisibility Cloak. In the tale of the three brothers, this one belongs to Ignotus Peveril, the youngest brother, while the other two are busy asking Death for flashy, dramatic, ego-driven objects. Ignotus does something very undramatic. He asks for something that lets him leave unnoticed. Not unbeatable, not resurrection-level dramatic, just protection. Death gives him a cloak that truly hides its wearer, not a charm that fades, not a spell that weakens, a cloak that cannot be summoned off, cannot be seen through, and does not wear out. And here's the part that matters. He uses it to live a normal life. He hides from Death for years, builds a family, grows old, and when he's ready, he passes the cloak to his son and greets Death as an old friend. Now, let's jump to modern wizarding history. The cloak eventually makes its way into the Potter family through marriage. Ignotus Peveril's descendant, Iolanthe Peveril, marries Hardwin Potter, and with her, the cloak enters the Potter bloodline. From that point on, it's passed quietly from parent to child for generations. Eventually, it reaches James Potter, and shortly before his death, James lends the cloak to Dumbledore, who had long suspected it was no ordinary invisibility cloak. After the attack at Godric's Hollow, Dumbledore keeps it safe. When Dumbledore gives Harry the cloak back in Philosopher's Stone, he includes that iconic note, "Use it well," and Harry absolutely does. But here's what makes his cloak special compared to normal invisibility cloaks. In the wizarding world, invisibility cloaks aren't rare, but they're usually made from demiguise hair. They fade over time, they lose strength, powerful spells can reveal you, they eventually deteriorate. Harry's cloak never fades, which means for 6 entire books, Harry has been casually using one of the Deathly Hallows, like it's a hoodie. Classic. But symbolically, it's perfect. The cloak allows Harry to explore Hogwarts, break rules, gather information, protect others, and survive, without seeking domination. He uses it to sneak into the restricted section. He uses it to spy on Draco. He uses it to move through the castle safely during dangerous moments. He uses it as a tool of survival and strategy, not ego. And that's the key difference between Harry and Voldemort. Voldemort becomes obsessed with the Hallows because he believes they make someone Master of Death. He assumes that means invincible. But Dumbledore explains something subtle. Being Master of Death doesn't mean you can't die. It means you accept death. Fun fact, Harry ends up uniting all 3 Hallows. He owns the cloak by inheritance. He becomes Master of the Elder Wand through disarming Draco. He uses the Resurrection Stone before walking into the forest. So what does Harry do after accidentally collecting all 3 legendary death artifacts? He drops the stone, he returns the Elder Wand, and he keeps the cloak. Why? Well, the cloak causes sneaking, and honestly, sneaking wins. So yeah, out of the 3 legendary objects that supposedly make you Master of Death, he keeps the blanket. Classic Potter move. Now, speaking of the Elder Wand, we need to talk about the ownership drama. Your next lesson, all 14 controversial masters of the Elder Wand explained. Watch now before someone snaps it in half just to end the argument.